Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, services, and the products that will be useful to develop the planet as well as meet the needs of 2 billion new people by 2050. And so we're going to be talking about one of those very essences of life, besides the water, is food and how we're going to be able to produce it. And I have someone sitting right beside me that's a world leader, I should say, in this whole area. This is Jeanne McCarty. She is the Executive Director of what's called Real School Gardens. She's in the Washington, D.C. headquarters office here in Washington, D.C. So Jeanne, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you, Sam. It's great to be here.
We're glad to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about what is Real, R-E-A-L, School Gardens.
Sure. Well, I'll start with Real School Gardens. We are an educational nonprofit that has a mission to create learning gardens that grow successful students. So to do that, we do two things. First, we partner with corporations to build outdoor classrooms in low-income schools, and we involve the entire school community to do that. We start with a children's design competition. Then we move to a design and dine dinner where we bring in parents, we bring in teachers to get their vision for the learning garden. And then we join with a corporation to build the garden in a day. And it's one incredible day of service. A lot of work on our part, but by the time that all the volunteers show up, we raise that garden in just one day. And then once that garden is built, we really get the impact through training teachers. You know, I always say you can't just build it and they come. You really do have to invest in teachers and train those teachers to utilize that space for teaching and learning. We want to see as many teachers get out there as possible, and so we focus heavily. Our partnership is 3 years, so we train teachers over the course of 3 years. Once that training is complete, we then have what we call evergreen support, so we continue to support the school in a much lighter way, but I would say that is where we have our impact, and that's what makes us successful. So over the last 11 years, we have partnered with more than 100 schools.
That's incredible.
In 10 school districts.
That's fantastic. Yeah, let us put up the video, because this is something, now that we have a good overview, let's see the video, and let's see what Real School Gardens are all about. I tell you, that is absolutely fantastic, Jeanne. So about the Real School Gardens, how do they support the K-12 educational programs that you have?
So there are so many benefits to school gardens, from just getting kids outdoors and moving around, introducing them to fresh fruits and fresh foods and vegetables, introducing them to the environment. But what we focus on is another issue that K through 12 education faces, which is low academic achievement. Mm-hmm. So we believe that getting kids engaged academically, helping teachers have better tools to be more effective teachers, is what will lead to academic achievement.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. So looking at the Real School Gardens, I know that you're really involving the community. You talked about that and you caught my attention. It's dinner at night, so we can show up for that. But how do you maintain these so that it's really a good quality as far as the instruction is concerned, but also to continually engage the community and the sponsors that you have?
So the maintenance of the garden starts in the beginning, so involving as many people in the process as possible and getting as many teachers engaged and actually utilizing the space as possible then gives that school the ownership. So we help schools set up ways that they can keep their garden maintained. We also help them partner with organizations in the community that can also help because our focus really is on getting those teachers out there and utilizing those gardens to teach math, science, language arts during the school day.
Mm-hmm. Now, but the community in the afternoons, evenings, and summers, you know, gardens are just starting when school is closing down. So how do you involve the community in that? So, because the teachers are going to be gone, they'll be in classes and doing all that throughout the summer months. So how does the community become engaged and feel like it's part of their community?
So we work with schools, having the experience of, you know, a network of more than 100 schools. We work with them to develop a maintenance plan. So before they leave in the summer, there's already a plan in place that is either driven by teachers and the PTO there. Sometimes it's neighbors and the neighbors that sign up to take care of the garden and then bring fresh produce home. Sometimes it's parents. So we work with the school to develop a plan that works for them and that helps engage the partners and the whole school community that they want to engage.
Now in this, can this also be part of a community gardening program, and how does that work?
Yeah, we see that happen at some of our schools where they, over the summer, have parents actually volunteer to take certain parts of the garden and then help grow and maintain the garden, grow the produce, and then take it back home. We've also seen some of our schools set up farmers markets where they may sell fresh produce in the afternoons. They may also bring in other produce providers who will help supplement those vegetables.
Now that's an interesting concept. Now, will the students be involved, say, through their business courses or some kind of social studies so that they actually are part of this farmers market? So it's the farmers plus youth market?
Absolutely. We focus primarily on elementary. So ours, it's very kind of light business skills, kind of learning math, understanding how to set something up and maintain and manage it. But as they move through middle school and high school, we've seen a lot of success in learning entrepreneurship through school gardens.
Oh, that's fantastic. How about teacher training? How does that happen, and what kind of courses do they take? And then can that apply towards credit as far as their recertification and maybe even towards their master's degree? Teacher
training, I would say, is the key to a successful school garden. So our teacher training program that we developed is one that is on site and during the school day. So we train all of the teachers and we show them this is an academic resource. This is a tool like anything else, a library, your media center, and we show them how to use it. Then we join them with their students and the class and actually model lessons. So we might show them how to take a measurement lesson outdoors, how to teach earth science outdoors, how to do descriptive writing outdoors. But training is key because teachers, you know, I always say that you can't kind of give technology to teachers and just expect that they know how to integrate that into their teaching practice. You really have to show them and be there with them and model it, and that's what we do at Real School Gardens.
Yeah, they have this standards of quality and the Common Core across the United States has different names for different states. So this is all becomes part of that then, so they can integrate the social studies, mathematics, various types of sciences, even history and nutrition and all those things then.
Absolutely, and they can teach it in a way that is hands-on and that better engages students. So I can give you an example. You know, kids are learning about sedimentation and erosion, and one way to do that is a teacher has them read, teaches it from the book. Another way to do that is to do a hands-on project, but it's often something that is built in the classroom and really isn't in the real context. You may show a video so they see the Grand Canyon, but that's not what kids are going to see in their daily lives. So we take teachers outdoors and show them how to actually teach about erosion and sedimentation on their school grounds.
Now, looking at all this, we've talked about all the benefits of Real School Gardens. How is it different from just a regular gardening program that some of the schools may be doing on their own?
I would say first, it's in the spaces that we build. So we build much more than vegetable gardens. Vegetable gardens are a part, but we also have wildlife habitats, we have water features, we built a shade structure. From what you saw, we also put up whiteboards and seating and mimic some of the things that make teachers comfortable that they have in their classrooms indoors. And then the second is the intensive teacher training. That makes it different. It gets more teachers actually utilizing the garden, where you might have at some schools 1 or 2 champions. We aim for more than half of the teachers to use that garden for teaching and learning.
Well, if you're doing this and actually they're getting reaccreditation, recertification credit, that's a big, huge incentive and very important. And also the whole thing is allowing this to be part of the curricula that they're taking at whatever university they're attending. So, and this goes across any university, regardless of their subject matter background, correct?
Right, and they're often required to have continuing ed credits at their district level. And so we work closely with the district to make sure that they get those continuing ed credits through our training.
That's fantastic. Involving, and we're just about out of time, corporations, NGOs, communities of faith, other organizations. How does that occur, and how can they be of support to Real School Gardens, Jeanne?
Sure, we couldn't get this done without corporate partners. They join alongside us to help fund the program. They also bring out the sweat equity. So at some of our big digs, we'll have upwards of 120 employees from corporations there working alongside.
That's why you can do this
teachers.
in one day then.
Absolutely.
So the ants are coming along with the big dig.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a lot of other NGOs have expertise that they bring to the table. We work with folks that know a lot about rainwater catchment, composting. They come out and they can educate during the day. And then other volunteer forces. So programs that turn out volunteers are great assets to a Real School Gardens program.
So this actually really goes into the community, what parents can do at their own homes. We have about less than 30 seconds. What do you see for the growth of Real School Gardens next 5, 10 to 15 years?
So right now we are building gardens out of 2 regions and serving a pretty consistent number of schools per year. We're right now hoping to establish new regions beyond this that we can grow from. And we also want to start training teachers in schools that already have a great space, but maybe they're underutilized. We want to get our program out there so we can get more teachers using their learning gardens during the school day.
That's fantastic. This is Jeanne McCarty. She is Executive Director of Real School Gardens in the headquarters of Washington, D.C. And really fascinating what you're doing as far as the next generations. Thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Art, a universal language, an expression of culture, of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs or to make a tax-free donation, contact C. Fripp at AOL.com.
Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read and may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America and Reading is Fundamental.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we look around the globe for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products as we go to a planet with 9 billion people by 2050. And so as we add all these people, how are we going to be able to provide the water, the food, the fuel, the fiber, all those things that are needed? But specifically, we're going to be talking about the food aspects of that. And as we go through the 21st century and adding these new people, of course, we're adding younger and younger citizens at all times. And so how do they know before they even leave school that they're part of this process of feeding the people of the planet? And we have two people that are very much involved in this. One is going to be joining us by telephone, coming in from Texas. This is Margie Hernandez, who is the principal of the Princeton Independent School District in Dallas-Fort Worth area. She's here by phone with us, and then sitting right beside me, our special guest is Jeanne McCarty. She is the Executive Director of the Rural School Gardens in the headquarters of Washington, D.C. And Margie, I understand you're already with us by phone?
Yes, I am.
Okay, welcome, and thank you for being with us. And we have some of your outstanding crew already up on the screen here for people here and around the globe to be able to see, but welcome to Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you for having me. And that's Pershing Elementary with the Dallas Independent School District.
And so looking at the Real School Gardens, how does this program fit into your quality of educational opportunities? And also tell us a little bit about your school division and your school.
So my school is a inner city school. I have 90% lower socioeconomic students. And how this program fits into my campus, it was been the best program that I've ever added to my campus. As a principal, I always look to basically increase, my main purpose is to increase academic achievement. So I look for outlets and avenues to extend learning opportunities for my students in the classroom outside of very traditional old methods of teaching, which are lecture or film. You know, we've recently, in the last 15, 20 years, added technology and a lot better quality of film, but even that can only take you so far. I think the hands-on experience has greatly increased my children's awareness, and that's the number one thing. Awareness, a missing piece, a connection to their food source, and so that has been the biggest, to me, the biggest piece that it's added to my camp.
I tell you, it's just fantastic what we're doing, and we have some of the work crews out here on, I guess, what they call the big dig. But as a school principal, how's the Real School Gardens been for your students, their families, and also for your faculty members?
So for my students, that's the main purpose for doing this. It has really made them, again, aware of their environment, aware of a connection to their food source, a connection to nature, more importantly, where their food comes from, how it grows, what it takes to grow food. So I think it gives them a different sense of, where sometimes you might just discard something because you just don't like it. It makes them think about what it took to produce that piece of food, that fruit or that vegetable, to grow it, to harvest it, to bring it to the school so they can eat it. So it's given them that awareness, which is both keen and given them understanding of nutritional value and just what it took to put it in front of them. Also, I think the sense of wonderment, how this is produced in such big amounts.
Now, looking at their families and then also your faculty, what some of the benefits for them?
So for my teachers, I think the biggest part is it's allowed them to teach, I hate saying it, but outside the box of using a textbook, a film, lecture, to more real life hands-on experiences. And it's teaching them a way to engage their students using all their senses, not just visual and auditory, but kinesthetic and touching and smelling and tasting. So that has been the biggest piece. And then also just going outside, how it engages their children and how their children become different learners inside the building as opposed to outside, how they're more receptive when they're outside the four walls of a classroom. And for my parents, I think, is learning from their students. I've had several parents who have come up and asked me, how to do this because their children are very excited about what we're doing here at school. So parents are finding students getting excited about growing things at home, taking ownership, learning from their students on how to do this. And so I'm finding that families are replicating more at home. And these are families that don't live in houses, that live in apartments with small patios, that are now looking to container gardening where they would have never before this opportunity at school or what the children learned at school. So they're taking it home and students are teaching parents.
Well, I tell you,
So
when you're talking about thinking outside the box and also outside the four walls, we have this image up here of this outdoor theater with the whiteboard and all that. It's really incredible, Margie, what you're doing on this campus that you have, because you've taken it from, in essence, a schoolhouse or a school building and a outside yard to really it's a theater. There's so much going on. It really is a total immersion learning experience, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I tell you, go ahead.
Not only for the students, but for my teachers and my whole faculty, families, and also neighbors. I mean, it really does engage everyone, and it brings people together for the one cause of helping children achieve or helping children increase academic achievement. And it's subtle, but everything they do out there helps them grow exponentially than what they would do normally in the classroom.
That's fantastic. Well, we have Jeanne here. She knows you and has worked with you, and she's going to ask the next question. Jeanne?
Sure. Margie. Hi, Margie. How are you?
Good, Jeanne, and you?
Great. I would love to hear some specific examples of how your teachers have used their Real School Gardens to teach across the disciplines.
Ooh, so many. The obvious connections that everybody makes, and, my teachers have run with it, are the connections to math and science, to the earth science, life science. Those connections were the ones that were instantly made, and my science teachers took off with it, and they still are. The ones that took a little bit longer to come on board was the reading language arts and possibly the social studies teachers, who through the education and the classrooms, the training from Real School Garden here in my building, where your professional educators, garden experts come out and help my teachers see how you can teach whatever standard, whether it's in reading or in social studies, how you can connect that and use the outdoor learning lab is what we call it. I think that has been the biggest piece. So when we talk about, we can connect it to U.S. history, but in Texas, we do a lot of Texas history. So our connection to our garden is the part of our garden that focuses on native Texas plants. So the children go there as they're reading about Texas history to get a sense of what it must be like for the pioneers in the early days of Texas when they're next to a native Texas plant. And then when the plant is referenced in their text, then that's the richer connection, number one. And I think that is the ones my kids enjoy more, I think, than anything else. And the other thing is when they're reading a story, when you're outside in nature, you can imagine yourself reading in a cubicle or reading in a desk or reading when you take your book outside to sit out in the yard, right? So that's a different connection. All of a sudden your senses become alive. I think that is the biggest part, the biggest attachment to my kids. They want to go outside and read. They ask if they can go outside and read during lunch. Why? Because even sitting outside during lunch and reading while you're eating lunch is a experience that they wouldn't have at home because of where they live, because they live in apartments, because they don't have green space. So just the yearning to use that space for that. The biggest piece for language arts is the sensory writing that we do. All of my reading teachers, bar none, take their students out to do sensory writing in the garden, and that has enriched their experience because they're feeling, touching, and smelling to use their sensory writing. They're not thinking about what it must feel like, or they're not thinking about, like they would in the classroom, what must that smell like? To try to write from just an imagination. But when they're in it, seeing it, touching it, breathing it, tasting it, that's a whole different experience. So those are the biggest changes that I've seen in my teachers. And it's opened up their thinking as well, where before they might have just been, we're creatures of habit. We do what we like and we do what we know.
Well, the whole thing about this,
are no exception to that. But
whole thing about
really
this,
stretch their thinking.
Whole thing about this, Marjorie, is as the United States now is already at 80% urban populations doing what you're doing there in this school, where you really are encompassing, everything that's around you. You're bringing in all of the environment. As you said, this is something that most of these children would never have. And on top of that is their parents have very little opportunities to get out just by the nature of the community. So I applaud you for what it is that you're doing. We've talked about the students, the interactions going out. How have most of your faculty or all of your faculty responded to this Real School Gardens program?
Well, the natural outdoors people were taken to it immediately. It took some training, some experience and exposure to the garden to convince teachers that don't normally garden, don't normally use outdoor spaces themselves. So it is hard to integrate something that you're not familiar with, something you don't necessarily find comfortable, which is maybe digging or getting a little bit dirty or even planting a seed, something so simple. But I think it is, for them, the biggest transformation. The teachers without experience in nature have made the biggest transformation, and I think sometimes they're more creative now than the teachers who maybe had a more natural exposure to nature and outdoors. So I think the braver, the teachers that are extending themselves and maybe not afraid to fail at something, are the ones that are growing the most. And when they grow and you let your children see that you're experimenting and growing, it kind of opens your children's mind as well. So you can take a risk and try something, and if it wasn't successful, what did you learn from it? So I think that carries over when kids see you do that and see you maybe not be successful at something, and think about it. What did we do wrong? And go back and be reflective and think deeper about what you did and what you learned from that experience.
Margie, we've got about 10 seconds left. What do you see for the growth of the Real School Gardens at your school over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And you got to be quick.
Okay, so Real School Garden, I have no doubt that they will grow as teachers, parents, and especially principals and administrators of school districts see the schools that are successful with the gardens, what it has done for their school. And as far as my school, I think we're going to continue growing and sharing and expanding our program.
Thank you very much, Marjorie Hernandez from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And thank you for being with us on the Emerald Planet.
Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire!
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go! Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People! The flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school, These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis as we're looking around the globe in 144 different nations looking for the best of the best. Those practices, the technologies, the services, and of course the people are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And one of the challenges are going to be as we go to a planet of 9 billion people is how we're going to provide the food for them, but also to engage a very young and ever becoming younger population around the globe in the African continent, in Latin America, Southeast Asia, even the South Pacific. And so to involve them now as they're going through school so that then they'll have the new green jobs training that's so necessary as we move towards 2050. And I have a gentleman sitting right beside me, Sam Ullery, who is the School Garden Specialist, Division of Wellness and Nutrition, and the Washington, D.C. Office of the State Superintendent of Education.
That's right.
I tell you, that's quite a title you have there, Sam, but welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, tell us about this. I knew that there was a lot going on in gardening and outdoor activities and all that, but I didn't know about the wellness and nutrition. Tell us a little bit about that within the Superintendent of Education for Washington, D.C.
I have the greatest job. I think I have the greatest job. I get to work in the state education office here in D.C. under the Wellness and Nutrition Services. And there's a piece of legislation here in D.C. which is pretty amazing. No one else in the country has this. It's called the D.C. Healthy Schools Act. And what it does is it provides support to schools to do all types of different things in their school for students, including school gardening. It also includes environmental literacy, farm-to-school programs, increased physical activity and PE minutes. But my job is to make sure that those kids are out there in the school gardens learning.
I think it's fantastic. And we have this chart here that goes over many of these things, and I think this is wonderful. Helping schools, students, and families. What a motto that you have there, Sam. And I can see why you say you have the greatest job in the country for this. Why are the school gardens so important as far as across all the schools? This is a K-12 initiative, so why is it so important?
Well, they're really important for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons, as a former teacher, kids are out in the gardens using their hands to learn, hands-on learning. A lot of times, students, when they're in the classroom, reading the textbook, the teacher's up there lecturing, they're not engaged, they're not learning like they should be. So when you get these students out in the gardens, planting seeds, harvesting, growing their own food, they become alive, and they start to really understand and grasp what they're doing.
Now this is a map of Washington, D.C. and all the 8 wards, and it looks like this program is spread throughout the whole city. Tell us a little bit about the different socioeconomic factors that go on in Washington, D.C. Many people are not familiar with that. And then the spread as far as the schools are concerned.
Sure. So there are over 100 school gardens in D.C. That's almost 50% of all the public and public charter schools have a school garden. So 3 years ago, it was about 40%. So we've seen an increase over the last 3.5 years of school gardens in the city. They are spread in all 8 wards of the city, which is great. And we do see more school gardens in the lower socioeconomic areas of the city than we have in the past. So that's actually where they are needed the most. There is many more school gardens in the K through 5 schools, and we find that has to do a lot with the Common Core and being able to align the Common Core standards more easily with the school gardens.
Well, I tell you, I just think it's fantastic. Of course, this is something we're getting ready as far as the school gardens, because it really is a very comprehensive program that you have, and it really goes beyond just school gardens itself. Tell us a little bit about this mix, and then going back to that chart we had up a little earlier about all these various activities and learning mods that you have and how you integrate that together.
Sure. So first, we depend so much on the dozen organizations throughout the city to run the school gardens in the schools. So we have programs, organizations like Real School Gardens. We have other organizations like DC Green, City Blossoms, Washington Youth Garden. They all run their programs.
And the edible schoolyards.
And edible schoolyards,
right.
Correct. They all run their programs specific to sort of what they're tailoring it to. So one organization may be focused more on the science. Another organization may be focused more on the arts or the reading or the math. So we really see teachers from across subject areas using the gardens with their students. With the Healthy Schools Act, one thing that we do is we provide funding to help school gardens run. It's a competitive grant. We provide $15,000 per school each year. This year we gave out $375,000 to schools.
That's real money.
Yeah, it's real money. And the money goes towards staffing. So what we see, one big challenge is that the gardens don't have that point person there to run the garden. So we're really focused on getting somebody there to work with the teachers to run the garden.
Now looking at this, I know this is something, Sam, that you work on day to day, and it's a real challenge, but also a wonderful opportunity, is involving the whole community. It's not just the corporations and the others that come out ever so often do something, but you really want the community to be involved on an ongoing basis. So just basing on what we're seeing here in this photograph, tell us the dynamic of what we're seeing and how is this emblematic of what's going on across these 100 schools.
Right. Well, this photograph was actually taken at a 1-acre school garden in Washington, D.C. 1
acre? That's a lot of land.
That's right. In D.C., where land is very valuable. And this is a training that we do in partnership with DC Greens, which is an excellent nonprofit organization in the city. And these are the school garden coordinators that we train to work with the teachers and the students in the school gardens. We depend on, like I said, over a dozen organizations in the city to run these programs, and it's really exciting to see when we have schools take on a school garden program, the community really come around that garden and take over. A lot of people ask, well, how are the gardens maintained in the summer? A lot of times it's the neighbors that come and water the plants in the summertime. So it's really exciting.
Well, I tell you, looking at this, I mean, this is colorful more than just, you know, the pink and green and yellow and all that, but all the different vegetables that you have. And I know that the Washington, D.C. prides itself, it says it's the top green city in the United States, perhaps the world, the mayor would add to that whole thing. And they're trying to expand the tree canopy as well as the gardens. How do you collaborate with the city so that you're incorporating, you know, forestry, all these other kinds of assets for the community as well as the gardening?
Well, we love fruit orchards in our gardens. They're excellent additions, a lot of figs and persimmons, some native fruits. And we actually work closely with the Sustainable DC initiative. We received a grant last year to build some model outdoor classrooms in 3 schools. So those will be coming up next school year.
Oh, I tell you, this is just getting more exciting all the time. And we see this is really an urban area, and this is something I keep mentioning, that United States, although we think of the wide open spaces and people are all over, 80% of the people live in urban areas. And this is something we really forget, Sam, particularly if we're living in DC. So what's the juxtaposition here between the high-rise buildings, very urban setting, and the gardens? How does all this fit together, all these moving parts?
Yeah, well, one thing that I like to remind myself and other people is that the garden is the physical space, but the real work and time and learning goes into the work with the teachers and the community. So some of these gardens are tiny. Some of them are 2 or 3 raised beds on asphalt, like you saw in the last photo. So you don't need a lot of space for these gardens, but what you do need is teacher time and expertise of nonprofit organizations to help them.
Yeah, so really it goes back to the personnel and the leadership, but also the enthusiasm and excitement, just like yours, Sam. I tell you, you're almost infectious as far as the work that you're doing, and it's just wonderful. But to see the wonderment on these faces of, you know, pulling I believe this is a turnip or a beet, and it's just amazing how these young people may have never seen a real food plant before.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about the wonderment that you see as you go around to these 100 different sites.
Well, that's what I see, and it's not just students pulling up a beet for the first time, but it's also students seeing a bee pollinate a flower for the first time, and the change in attitude that goes along with that, and realizing that this is something that we need to take care of, and it's something that we can take care of. So it really gives students this sense of ownership over their school grounds, and they start to become proud of what they're doing and say, hey, look, Mom, look at that garden I built.
No, this is fantastic. Tell us, these eyes, these young people, and this is something they're going to remember the rest of their lives. And by the time they get older, it's going to be a very long lifespan, 100 years or plus. So how does what they're doing right here with this beet translate to their parents and to their extended families?
Well, we actually see that when students work in the school gardens, they're more likely to cook at home with their families. And so they take that recipe card that their teacher gave them, how to make the beet salad, and they take it home and say, hey, Mom, I want to try some beets. And you can't say no to your child asking you to try beets, so we see a lot of parents trying new food, new nutrient-rich food for the first time.
And also, too, looking at this youth right here, this is something, as you're saying, Sam, they can take this. Now, will you provide seeds or anything like that for the students to take back home?
We do provide seeds. We have a relationship with DC Water. We provide free biosolid compost to the school gardens.
We deal with DC Water very nicely. That's a great organization.
Yeah. And yeah, we have some materials that we provide as well. So we give support where we can.
So actually, plants and vegetables are becoming a fashion statement, as we see right here, Sam. How do these younger, I shouldn't say the younger, but the older students, how is this continued as they go through middle school and high school?
I'll give you an example. At Eastern High School, they have a greenhouse and they run it as a business. And so the students
business courses, economics, all that's right in there.
Yep. They're running as a business, they're selling seedlings, they have a CSA, a community supported agriculture program, and they're making money and they see the value in their gardening program through that business.
Well, I'll tell you, this is really a beautiful setting there. So as you're going around these 100 different sites and you're expanding it year to year, what do you see as the long-term benefit of this program? And it's got to be short because we're almost out of time.
Well, reducing the obesity rate. Really, we're 38% right now for childhood overweight and obesity, and I see that number going down.
That's incredible, and that's an epidemic right now around the United States. So what do you see next 5, 10, 15 years for your school gardens process?
I want to see more staff in school gardens. The school garden, I want to see it like the gym or the library. It's a part of the school day. It's not something special for the teacher to say, let's go out to the garden. It's a part of the day.
Well, I tell you, this is a fantastic way to go out with this handsome group you have there, Sam. And this is Sam Ullery. He is the school garden specialist for the Division of Wellness and Nutrition. I think you have the longest title with all of our programs. And this is the Washington, D.C. Office of the State Superintendent of Education. Sam, you're doing really good work. And all these people that you've got involved in the gardening and nutrition and the futures of these young people is fantastic as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folk, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet, Director and host for the Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis, looking around the globe for those 1,000 best practices, technologies, services, products, and of course the people that are providing the leadership as we move towards 2050. And a planet that's going to add 2 billion new people by then. So not only we're looking at all the basic infrastructure and the water needed, but also how we're going to be able to feed these populations, but at the same time to increase the job base by these 2 billion people. And we have a gentleman and a young lady sitting right beside me. Scott Feille is a regional director of the School Gardens in the Dallas-Fort Worth area headquarters of what's called Real School Gardens. He's going to be coming in by Skype. And sitting right beside me is from the headquarters office here in Washington, D.C. This is Jeanne McCarty. She's the executive director for the Real School Gardens. Jeanne, thank you for being with us in the studio. And Scott, welcome. And I believe you're here by Skype, correct?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me.
Okay, good to hear your voice, and thank you for coming all the way from Texas. Anyway, tell us a little bit about the Rural School Gardens and how this is actually being implemented in the Dallas-Fort Worth areas and throughout that whole region of Texas.
Sure. We're an educational non-for-profit organization that works with about 100 Title I elementary schools here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in North Texas, all the way from West Fort Worth over to East Dallas. And as Jeanne mentioned, we create learning gardens that grow successful students. And we do that basically by doing two things. We build gardens and then put quite an emphasis on training the educators.
Well, I tell you, I like that. You're growing students, and by the way, there's some vegetables and maybe some fruit and other things that go along with that. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, lots of math, lots of science, lots of English language arts.
Oh, that's absolutely incredible. As a teacher, tell us a little bit about some of the benefits that you've seen through this program besides taking kids and burning off a lot of energy.
Oh, well, I'd like to tell you a story, if I can, about one of my students when I was teaching 5th grade.
Go ahead.
All right, let's call him Michael. He was supposed to be in 6th grade. He was a emotionally charged young man who'd turn over desks and break pencils. And one day he was suspended for cursing out my 5th grade partner in 5th grade. And so while he was out, we hatched a plan, and he came back to school, and we put the plan into action, and we told the children, hey, we're going outside to the garden, we're going to be going through some stations, and we need someone really big and strong with a lot of stamina and energy to help turn this compost pile. And of course he fell right into the trap and said, oh, me. So we said, all right, you're in charge, buddy. So he's digging into the compost pile. Of course, we'd already measured the temperature. We knew it was 136 degrees internally, and we knew that when he stuck his shovel in there, what would happen. And we heard him exclaim, and I'll revise this for your viewers.
Yeah, this is G-rated audience.
Yeah, he said, "Holy cow!" What's that? It's on fire. It's on fire. And so all the students came over, and what it was that the compost pile was steaming because the internal temperature was so hot. And of course, we knew that would happen. And so he became the compost king. He became responsible for putting a team together each week to go out and collect data and record data. He went from a student that was not passing math and was held back in school to getting commended performance in math as the compost king and data manager for the garden. So when you have a resource that can take your toughest student and turn them into one of your shining stars, then, as a teacher, I'll take that any day.
Oh, Scott, you're doing fantastic work, and I like this Metroplex concept because, we're 80% of the population now in urban areas, and you've just proven you're in the great state of Texas, the wide open areas, and you still have all these people living in urban environments. Jeanne, why don't you ask the next question?
Yeah, Scott, so we've talked a lot about the impact on students, and I'd like to hear a little bit about the impact that you see on teachers through the Real School Gardens program.
Sure. So one time I was facilitating a training in Dallas ISD at Ronald McNair Elementary School, and I was explaining the instructions, and one of the teachers said, "You want me to do what?" And I said, well, I want you to take a risk. I want you to go where no teacher has gone before. I want you to do it for the kids, do it for the children. And so she reluctantly said, okay. And she did it. And what she did was she went over to the garden bed and she got about a quarter's worth of soil and held it in the palm of her hand. And so I got an email the next Monday actually. This was on a Saturday. One of her colleagues sent us an email and said, hey, Miss Johnson is out in the garden in her heels. There are 2 other classes out there as well. She wouldn't go out there without antibacterial, soap before, and now we're making some extra beds actually, so that her class can have a place to plant some flower boxes. So so the biggest impact that we have is we're able to work with teachers who might otherwise be skeptical and get them to a point where they're comfortable doing what's great for our kids, which is getting them moving, getting them outside, growing fresh fruits and vegetables, and learning all of their content that's mandated by the Common Core or what have you, depending on your state.
That's fantastic. And looking at this facility that you have there, Scott, this is just incredible. Of course, this is one of many around your whole area, but with the teachers and the community and even the students being involved in this, it's just a tremendous effort, and it really shows what can be done if there's a will. And of course, the communities are saying more and more we need to involve everything that's going to help improve the environment, but also food production. So thank you for doing that. But teacher training, very often it's inside the classroom, they're reading materials, they're doing some research on the computer, but yet it seems like that the Real School Gardens is a very different model as far as teacher training. So what is this model, and how is it different than the standard teacher training program?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is that it's fun. And the second thing that I would say is it's relevant to what teachers are doing in the classroom with their students right now. Teachers opt into our training. So teachers are coming to us, schools are coming to us saying, hey, we want this. So from the get-go, it's not something that we're mandating. When we sit down with teachers at our first professional development in our 3-year program, we sit in a circle and we make reference to the fact that they're experts, and we're not here to overhaul them or to be the experts at the front of the room. We're all experts. We're all here to share. And then another thing that we do that's different is we work with the teachers on their school grounds in their outdoor classrooms while their students are present, so that we can model techniques, classroom management and academic kind of learning methodologies, teaching methodologies, so that they can see it firsthand with their students that they think might get hurt, might run away, so on and so forth. And so they really, it's not just going off site, seeing a PowerPoint, putting some stuff on a piece of chart paper and calling it a day. It's really about implementing outdoor learning with your students in an outdoor classroom.
And you said, I think, Scott, that most of these all these are Title I schools?
almost every school is a Title I school. There are a couple of exceptions.
So you understand some of the hesitation that some people have as far as being outside and moving around in some of these communities, and what you're doing is you're taking something that before was an area of fear, now turning it something that people actually embrace and find very dear. So looking at these two students, and they're talking about the leaf, and you got the foreground, the flowers. What are some of the greatest impacts you see, not only on the students, but also faculty and members of the community?
Oh, great. Well, I have a great quick story about leaves. We were working with a school called I Am Terrell in Fort Worth, and it's a school that is hemmed in by 3 highways, and is the student population comes from a affordable housing complex there and several homeless shelters. And I was sitting with a mother and her children at what we call our design and dine that Jeanne made reference to earlier. And we catered dinner and we had a salad, and this little girl held up a piece of lettuce and said, "What is this?" And I said, well, being the good teacher that I am, well, what do you think it is? And she said, "I think it's a leaf." And I said, "You're right, it's a leaf." And her mother said, her mother's name was Karen. "You've seen a lettuce before? You've seen it on hamburgers, McDonald's?" And she said, "No, I've never seen lettuce like this." and then she said, "Scott, or Mr. Scott, I think she called me. She said, when we have our school garden, can we have lettuce?" And I said, "Of course." And then not only did they have lettuce, but they had lots of other leafy greens, and they harvested them and donated them to a really nice restaurant in Fort Worth for several years in a row as part of a fundraising activity where they got to go meet the chef, eat a meal created with their produce. So there's a lot going on in those pictures.
No, I tell you, it's fantastic. And this child right here is actually in the outside laboratory doing some, looks like mathematics, but also some reading at the same time. But Jeanne, what's the next question?
So Scott, 3 years of teacher training is a pretty heavy investment. Can you talk about how transferable the knowledge and skills are if a teacher, say, leaves the school or leaves the district? What are the kind of things that we're training on that transfer?
Well, sure. I'd start by saying it's definitely transferable, the training, and not just from school to school and district to district, but from outside to inside. So a lot of what we focus on is teaching methodology. So starting with an experience and getting children excited, providing opportunities for students to need the language that will be used to describe those experiences. So those procedures, those methodologies, those teaching practices, they work inside, they work outside, they work in DC, they work in Texas, they work in California, they work wherever you take them. Once you have those skills, you can apply them to any content in any school in any district.
Scott, we got 10 seconds left, 10 seconds, so it's got to be quick. What do you see for the growth of the real school gardens in Dallas-Fort Worth and across the United States?
School gardens will be the new normal, and just like Sam said, going to the garden will just like be going to the science lab or the library. It won't be strange, it won't be a privilege, it'll be a part of everyday life for students across the country.
Thank you very much. Scott Farrell is Regional Director, School Gardens, Dallas-Fort Worth area headquarters. Sitting right beside me is Jeanne McCarty. Thank you, Jeanne, for being with us. Fantastic job. And this photograph you have here is wonderful as we create the Emerald Planet.